Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel where we stop pretending the economy is a meritocracy and start looking at the actual numbers that keep most people running in place. If you've ever opened your banking app, seen your balance barely move after a month of grinding, then scrolled past another headline about billionaires adding another few billion to their net worth and felt that quiet, burning question, how is this even possible? Then stay right here. You're not jealous. You're not lazy. You're noticing something real, the gap between the 1% and everyone else isn't shrinking, it's exploding, and the math behind it makes escape feel statistically improbable for most. You work harder than ever, you budget, you side hustle, you skip vacations, and still the rent creeps up. Groceries cost more, healthcare eats your savings, while the ultra-wealthy seem to print money by existing. That exhaustion, that sense of being stuck no matter how fast you run, is valid. It's not in your head. Today we're whiteboarding the Gini coefficient, not as some boring econ term, but as the simple equation that quantifies why wealth concentrates at the top and why the system keeps pulling the ladder up behind the people who already climbed it. We'll sit in the frustration first, because you can't fight what you won't admit hurts. Stick with me for 20 minutes. By the end, you'll see the mechanism clearly, why it's not your personal failure, and what small, realistic moves can still shift your trajectory in a rigged game. Let me sit with that feeling for a second. You check the news. Another CEO makes $50 million in stock awards while laying off thousands. Your rent goes up 8% because market rates. Your raise was 3%. You tell yourself, just work harder. But you've been working harder for years, and the needle barely budges. Meanwhile, friends or influencers post about their stock portfolios doubling, their crypto wins, their passive income streams, and you wonder what secret sauce you're missing. The shame creeps in. If I were smarter, I'd be there too. No, stop. This isn't about individual intelligence or effort. The numbers show that even high earners in the middle are getting squeezed while the top accumulates faster than any previous generation. Over 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. The bottom 50% own roughly 2 to 3% of total wealth. The top 1% owns more than the entire middle class combined. That disparity isn't accidental. It's the outcome of a mathematical dynamic that's been running for decades. We're about to draw it out so the next time you feel that burn, you'll know it's not character. It's calculus. You deserve to feel seen before we get into the cold facts. Picture your own life trajectory. You save what you can, invest in index funds when possible, avoid debt traps, but progress feels glacial. Meanwhile, the wealthy buy assets that appreciate, borrow cheaply against them, pay lower effective taxes, and compound at rates most people can't access. The unfairness isn't abstract. It's in your inability to take the same risks because you don't have the same safety net. That quiet rage or resignation is rational. It's your brain correctly perceiving the system where starting position predicts outcome more than effort does. Today, we whiteboard the Gini coefficient as the cleanest way to measure that skew, how it translates into real power imbalances, and why small policy tweaks rarely dent it. You're not dramatic for feeling trapped. You're accurate. Let's turn the marker to the equation that explains why. Whiteboard clean, let's make this concrete. At the top right, Gini coefficient. It's a single number between 0 and 1, or 0 to 100%, that measures income or wealth inequality. 0 equals perfect equality. Everyone has exactly the same. 1 equals perfect inequality. One person has everything, everyone else nothing. Most countries fall between 0.25 to 0.6. U.S. wealth Gini is around 0.85, among the highest in developed nations. Sketch the Lorenz curve. X-axis cumulative population percentage, bottom to top. The axis cumulative wealth income percentage. The 45-degree perfect equality line is the diagonal. The actual curve bows downward the further it bows. The higher the Gini, area between the diagonal and the curve divided by total area under diagonal equals Gini. Simple visual. If the bottom 50% owns 2% of wealth, the curve stays flat for half the x-axis, then shoots up steeply for the top. That bow is massive. Now the real math of concentration. Wealth compounds exponentially for those who already have it. Draw two lines. Bottom 50% mostly wages, little to no asset ownership, returns near 0% after inflation, debt. Top 1% assets, stocks, real estate, businesses, returning 7 to 12% annually compounded. Example, $10 million portfolio at 8% compounds to $46 million in 20 years. $10,000 portfolio at same rate gives $46,000. The absolute gap widens dramatically, even at identical percentage returns. But the rich get better returns. Access to private equity, lower fees, tax-advantaged vehicles, leverage. Effective return differential, often 2 to 4% higher. Over decades, that differential explodes. Add policy multipliers. Capital gains taxed at 15 to 20% versus wages at 22 to 37%. Inherited wealth stepped-up basis gives minimal tax. Corporate profits flow disproportionately to shareholders. Top 10% own approximately 90% of stocks. Draw inequality amplifier. Initial wealth times 1 plus R underscore effective T times tax underscore drag underscore reduction. Small r difference plus lower taxes plus time equals geometric explosion. Fed data. Top 0.1% wealth share rose from approximately 7% in 1989 to approximately 14% today. Bottom 50% share stayed near 2 to 3%. Gini doesn't just measure inequality, it predicts poverty traps, reduced mobility, political capture. The equation is brutally simple. Once concentration hits critical levels, the system self-reinforces. Small advantages become insurmountable leads. You're not stuck because you're bad at math. You're stuck because the math is rigged to reward already having. Now connect the dots bigger. Whiteboard a feedback loop labeled Wealth Concentration Engine. Inputs. Policy gives markets, gives institutions, gives culture. Outputs. Higher Gini gives more power at top, gives policies favor top, gives higher Gini. Policy gear. Tax cuts for high earners corporations, 1981, 1986, 2001. 2017. Estate tax erosion, capital gains preference, carried interest loophole. Deregulation of finance gives more leverage for wealthy, more risk shifted to everyone else. Weak labor laws gives wage suppression. No universal healthcare, education gives debt burdens on middle bottom. Market gear. Winner-take-all dynamics in tech, finance, IP. Network effects, scale advantages gives few companies dominate. Founders, execs, capture outsized gains. Asset inflation, stocks, housing, benefits owners, top, while renters, workers pay more. Institutional gear, revolving door between regulators and industry. Lobbying power scales with wealth top 0.01% spend millions annually shaping rules. Campaign finance gives policy reflects donor class. Cultural gear. Meritocracy myth persists despite data showing intergenerational elasticity, approximately 0.4 to 0.5. Your parents' income predicts yours strongly. Media glorifies billionaires as self-made while omitting inheritance. Tax strategies, bailouts. Global angle. IMF, World Bank data high Gini correlates with slower growth, higher instability, lower social mobility. U.S. has higher Gini than most OECD peers because it chose policies that accelerate concentration. Empathy point. You're not failing in a fair game. The game was redesigned over decades to extract upward. The 1% doesn't own 99% because they're smarter. They own it because the equation favors concentration once it begins. Blame the designers, not the players at the bottom. Seeing the loop frees you from self-blame. Now we whiteboard what you can actually do. Final section: realistic moves in an unequal system. 1. Personal compounding. Maximize what you control, live below means. Invest consistently, index funds. Minimize high-interest debt. Small, consistent investments compound, even if starting late. 2. Skill and network leverage. Focus on high-velocity fields, tech, trades, sales, where talent compounds fast. Build networks, deliberately cold outreach, communities, mentorship. 3. Debt and buffer defense. Build emergency fund first, $1,000 then 3 to 6 months. Avoid lifestyle creep. Protect credit score. 4. Income acceleration. Side hustles, job hops, negotiations, multiple streams. Goal: increase earning power faster than inflation plus cost creep. 5. Advocacy and voting. Support policies that reduce Gini progressive taxation, estate tax enforcement, universal services, labor protections. Small votes compound too. 6. Mindset shift. Focus on relative progress, your net worth trajectory, versus absolute comparison. Track personal Gini-like metrics, your wealth versus expenses. 7. Community power. Join or build mutual aid, co-ops, worker-owned models that short-circuit concentration. Realistic expectation. You probably won't join the 1%. But middle-class stability, millionaire status, or financial independence is achievable for many through ruthless compounding and protection. The system is rigged, but individuals still escape every day. Wrap. The inequality equation Gini coefficient shows why 1% owns so much and why you're stuck in the math. It's not your effort. It's the compounding rules. You're not powerless. You're awake. If this resonated, like, subscribe, share with someone feeling the squeeze. Comment. What's one number, Gini awareness, personal wealth goal, policy change that shifted for you today? Let's keep exposing the equation together. You're tougher than the math wants you to believe. See you next, more aware, more strategic.